Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to be doing a review of the Elevate Titanium Stud Kit. So we're going to be converting from your factory wheel lugs on the Volvo V60 or S60 or any P3 platforms for that matter. Also, Elevate sells it for the P2 as well, so you can check out their website. Link is down below in the description. But what we're going to be looking today is at their titanium, again, nut and stud conversion kit. So what I have here are a couple different ones. These are the OEM ones. You know, if you're feeling lug bolts, they are kind of relatively heavy in a sense. At least you can feel the difference here. Altogether, there is a total weight from 5 on each wheel of 2.8 pounds, or 40-gram difference. And then I also have a titanium lug bolt that I was using as well. So you kind of have the different steps in between. So if you're trying to make the argument, oh, why are you doing that to save weight? Well, I had already did it. I'm more doing this for convenience now. We'll talk about that in a second. So the factory lug bolt, it does have this washer here, so the lug will spin and not this on your paint. So there's one benefit there of the factory one. However, most times aftermarket wheels, these are not going to fit. These do not fit my OZ wheels, and these do not fit my Project 6GR wheel, so these were out of the question. So then I went to a titanium lug bolt, saving weight there, yes. Still the same concept as this. You have to put the wheel on, line it all up, and then you have to try and put this in. Now the whole reason for converting to a stud kit is like a typical car, I say. They're already in there, so it's a lot easier to line up the wheel, place it on, especially if you have a large brake kit like myself with the Rotara kit. It can be quite troublesome to use the lug bolt conversion, especially taking the brakes on and off at track days. Then you have your awesome titaniumness goodness. So everything is super lightweight. These are almost the same weight, so weight change here is very negligible. You are going to notice there are two different threads. The smaller or fatter, thicker, stubby side is going to go into your hub assembly, and this portion will be sticking out where we will be applying the nut, and I'm going to show you the process of that. Included in the kit is some Loctite or thread locker, as well as some anti-seize. So we will be adding the thread locker onto the part that goes onto the hub, and then we will be adding anti-seize onto the threaded part for your nut. Again, you're going to be torquing these down to factory settings. This is a 6mm Allen, which is provided in the kit. I just have my own socket that I like to use, that I can use with a ratcheting, with the ratchet. And so we're going to go ahead and show you two different ways that you can install these. One is with the wheels on already. Another is with taking the wheel off and showing you the difference too and the struggle of trying to use a lug bolt versus the stud. So enjoy. So if you're going to do it with the wheel on, the first thing you want to do is remove one lug at a time for this conversion. So for myself, with these current ones, I'm using a 17mm. Factory is 19mm. And again, you would do this one at a time, because obviously if you take all 5 out, you're going to be in trouble there. So again, you could do this while the wheel's on, and that's perfectly okay. You're going to be inserting this, but do not forget your wonderful thread locker. We'll be adding a nice generous amount there. Line that up, spin it in. This is another reason why I like using my own ratchet. Now with this being an Allen, you are kind of limited on how much torque to provide, so obviously don't break your Allen, don't strip anything, but you want it as tight as you can do it without breaking anything. Now when I said the torquing mechanism, when you go ahead and put your nut on and you produce your 90 foot-pounds of torque, it's going to have that same tightness that your normal lugs are going to be holding onto your wheel. So even though the stud is not quote-unquote at 90 foot-pounds, the threads to this sandwiching is 90 foot-pounds, so that'll be okay. Now before we put this on, anti-seize. So if you're doing it with the wheel, you've got a nice little you can squeeze that on. And then what's also nice about this kit is they provide a socket so you won't scratch your wheels up. It's got the nice nylon on the outside, so when you put this on, it is a 17 millimeter. And the reason for the anti-seize, because these are titanium, and let's say if you aren't changing your wheels a whole lot, which I am going to be, they can sometimes seize or galvanize, and we're trying to prevent that with the anti-seize. Next up, get your torque wrench. And torque to spec. And you have installed it. Now, something to note, at least on my rears, I do have a 3 millimeter spacer, which we'll see when we do the other side. So you will see that this is a little bit more flush, whereas the fronts, which we're going to go look at right now, the thread is actually sticking out. So if you don't have a spacer and whatsoever, you'll have full contact of engagement. I have enough threads with how thick this is. I'm not worried about that. That's pretty dang good there, but I'm going to show you the front too that I've done. So this is the front, and as you can see, the threads, because there is no spacer on here, and you'll see the difference too with just having a 3 millimeter spacer, these threads poke out just a hair, whereas on the rears that I just did was a little flush, if just a little concave in. Again, I'm not too worried about it, but you don't really want to be running some big spacers on these. Now before I add the last one, I did wanted to take note of how cool these are. You've got the etched in E for elevate, but also the amount of thread. So in case some of you are worried, there is a good amount of thread engagement happening even with the 3 millimeter. So if I were to count or guesstimate, I'd say there's roughly a 10 solid full revolution of threads actually engaged. So even though I'm not getting that last lip, which honestly isn't much of a thread anyways, there's still full engagement. But just like that, this side without removing the wheel is done. And now we're going to jump over to the other side, and I'm going to show you a little bit of the struggles of the lug bolts. Maybe some of you already know this struggle. Maybe some of you don't, and you're curious of why you would even want to do this upgrade, regardless of them being titanium or not, which is just more icing on top of the cake. We're going to go ahead and show you that. So what I want to show here is even the act of removing the wheel with the lug bolts can be very difficult. So my feet actually are going to be supporting the wheel on both sides, because again, this, which contributes to the front as well, the wheels, if you undo this, have a very high chance of falling and hitting your rotor or your caliper. And if you have a nice paint and finish on it, or you care about some aesthetics, you're gonna be like, hey, or your wheel, you don't want to mess it up. But even to undo it, I have to actually push up with my feet and pressurize the wheel, so that way I can unscrew these. So if I don't do that, and I already unloosened these, I cannot turn it. But by putting my, well, maybe that one needs a little bit more. Defeats the whole purpose of what I'm saying, right? It wasn't much. But this last one is going to be the one that is the difficult child. So, okay, that's nice and loose. Now, if I don't use my feet, I can't turn that at all. So I have to get down here and literally lift the wheel up and wiggle it. You see me wiggling with my feet just to try and get it up. And you can even see that the wheel holes of the bolts are moving. So with the studs, I'm not gonna have to worry about this anymore. You're not gonna have to worry about this anymore. But needless to say, okay, and then you go ahead and you have to take it off. So when you take it off, you have to like lean it back, don't hit your nice juicy rotor. Now let's say I want to put it back on. I've got a spacer in here. I probably can't pull it through. Let's put that on, try to line up the holes, and then we're going to struggle with getting this back on, because again, you don't want to hit your caliper. So now you can see, oh, my hole's not lined up, so let me spin it. Ugh. Okay, it's still not lined up properly. Then you have to try and get it in. You're balancing it with your feet, and you get one, and then you got to try, and you can still move it around, and you can get two. It's a struggle. I'm already breaking a sweat right now. With the studs, we're not gonna have to worry about that. So let's take this off again and put the studs in and show you how much easier it is. Probably should have did the bottom one first. How much easier it is to install the wheel, even with the spacer. Alright, so here's our spacer, and as I remove it, I'm expecting it to show rust, which may not make sense because aluminum and aluminum, but I got these used and didn't clean them when I threw them on because I was in a rush, and that's what happens. That'll come off with some nice cleaning though, because aluminum doesn't rust. But again, this is a nice small 3mm. We're gonna go ahead and show you how to install it with the wheel off. Now the rears are easy because you could set the parking brake and this isn't gonna move. The fronts, you're gonna either want to do it with the wheel on, or if you do it with the wheel off, have somebody hit the brakes while you are installing these bad boys. So, same process. And you might ask yourself, why do you want to do it with the wheel off? Well, maybe you're servicing your brakes or whatnot. You see, I missed a little bit there. Add a little bit back. There we go. I'll also clean that up. But yeah, you can see just by doing that, it cleans most of it off anyway. So if you got some brake clean and whatnot, I'm lazy again. Not gonna bother with it. Sorry, internet. See, there's that one. So this process, you're doing all 5 at the same time before putting the wheel, and in my case, the spacer back on. And again, they all come very nicely wrapped and packaged so nothing gets scratched. So that was really nice to see if you, again, care about getting brand new parts and not having any damage on them until you inflict the damage. Because that tends to be what happens in my case. Brand new rotor, and because not having these studs and trying to juggle the wheel, you might see this little scrape. You might have saw it on the other side too, on my rotor. To me, bugs me a little bit because self-inflicted, and again, if it came with the factory with studs, we wouldn't have this issue. But again, too, 90 foot-pounds of torque on your nuts, and it's not going to come off, trust me. And then with track events, you don't take your wheels off either when everything is super hot because you can't handle the brakes. So you let them cool down for a little bit, and by the time you are going to undo all your lug nuts, you're not going to have issues. So the heat will not be an issue. Those are just keeping them in place for when you go to take them off, and then of course the anti-seize assists in all of that. So you can do this 2 ways. You can either add the anti-seize now. I'm not. I like to do it with the wheel on, just so that way I don't get any on my wheel, because knowing me, I'm gonna slide it and all that good jazz. So spacer's on, look at that. I don't have to struggle with trying to line the holes up. You know, that was just second nature. It just went on like that. That's already, I'm happy with that. So now let me throw on some gloves and we're going to throw on the wheel. All right, so the only struggle I may have, ow, is the tire. I just said ow because I got stabbed by something sticking out of my tire because it's so sticky it picked something up. Ooh, good thing I'm up to date on my tetanus. All right, so again, I think the camera's too close. That's gonna be mainly my main struggle here. All right, so just like a typical installation of a wheel without knocking over the camera. You're going to lift the wheel up, slide it on, be good to go. You can let it go. Look at that. Look how amazing that is. So easy. I'm not holding anything with my feet. I'm really, really happy about that right now. And it does not appear to be touching, even though I set it up like that. There's a nice little gap there. I don't know if you guys can, I can stick the camera in far enough, but it's not touching the rotor, or the caliper. I keep calling it backwards. So my nice rotor calipers are going to stay contact free, and installing is going to be so much easier because, again, I can leave it on the new studs and not have to worry and juggle, and I can just take my time and not sweat and stress. So you can clearly see the benefit of why this conversion kit is essential, especially if you do a lot of tracking, you're constantly taking your wheels off. It just makes life better. On other models too, there's always conversion kits to take the lug bolts to studs, so I highly recommend this. You get some cool swag. You can say you have titanium nuts, you know, all those good puns. You know, you do your typical wiggling like that to get it on, which is pretty normal, but again, I'm not struggling. Boom. So yeah, that is how you install, again, 90 foot-pounds of torque on the Volvo V60 or S60. Elevate, look them up again. They have these conversion kits for most of the Volvo platforms from P1 through P3, C30 models, the V60s, the V90s, V70s. A couple of them, if I'm incorrect, I apologize, or if I left out a few, again, apologize. But go ahead, look and see what they have on their website. You can see the description in the link, or the link is in the description. So we'll see you guys next time.